My Best Friends Live in the Woods. The Adventures of Albert by Anne Michelle Moracek. Chapter 17. The Miner's Cat.
Toss another sticker ball, Jimmy, please. I'm sure I can hit it this time. Timothy planted both feet and lifted his stick with determination.
Yes, well, okay, but you have to gather up all the sticker balls and bring the pile back to me.
Jimmy Squirrel was a pretty good pitcher, and since Timothy was fairly new at hit the stick, he still needed a lot of practice. Albert and Timothy had gotten up early to meet Jimmy at the sandbank along the river for a game. It was really too hot in the afternoon to be fun, but the early morning was lovely with dew. A cool breeze delighted them, and their game was serenaded by the songs of the birds as they welcomed the day and caught up on forest gossip. So, you have to keep watching the sticker ball the whole time, Timothy. You keep looking around. Focus, Albert instructed. What are you looking for anyway? Albert was just a bit annoyed at his little brother. Timothy lowered his stick and lowered his voice to just above a whisper. Rumor has it there's a stranger in the forest.
Oh, really?
Jimmy left the pitcher spot and joined Albert and Timothy in a close huddle.
Where did you hear this?
Jimmy twitched his tail. So, the Bunny twins, Gabby and George, said that Mrs. Beaver said, that Mrs. Deer said, that Mrs. Badger said that there is a new creature out and about at night. Timothy nervously looked over his shoulder toward the thicket.
Oh, yeah? Well, this is morning, so get back to the game.
Jimmy kicked the sand impatiently. Just a minute, Jimmy. I'd like to hear more, Albert said as he turned to Timothy. Did they say what he looked like? Timothy cleared his throat. Actually, they say it looks kind of like you, but kind of not. Albert was shocked. Do tell, he encouraged. So, Timothy continued, they say it is smallish and has a dark brown body like a cat, but has a long black and white striped tail that is as long as its whole body. Now Jimmy was interested.
You don't say. Has anyone tried to talk to it?
He was wide-eyed. I don't know. Timothy shrugged his shoulders. As they talked, the sun continued to travel higher, and the cool breezes and the dew were now burning off.
I'm hot, Jimmy announced. I'm going home,
he said, and dropped the sticker ball, flicked his tail, and darted across the sandbank and up the nearest tree. He ran skillfully from one branch to the next across the tree highway in the sky, headed back to his nest. Albert patted Timothy on the head. It's okay, I'm hungry. Let's head home and see what Mother Skunk has going in the kitchen. Timothy turned his attention to his tummy and eagerly followed Albert back to the cave. Inside it was cool and welcoming. Bluebell was pouring water into the pitcher. How was the game? She smiled at the boys. Oh, we didn't play very long, Albert shrugged. Did you hear about the stranger? Timothy asked Bluebell. He secretly hoped she had not, so he could be the one with news. Stranger? Here? Bluebell set down the pitcher. No! Timothy smiled and retold his story. That is very interesting, Bluebell said. Seriously, tell Mother when she gets back. Okay, where is she? Timothy glanced about the cave, expecting to see her. Out gathering raspberries, Bluebell said as she resumed filling the pitcher. You two go wash up while I get lunch ready, Bluebell instructed. As Albert washed his face and hands, he thought to himself, a stranger that looks kind of like me and kind of not. How odd. The lunch crowd was noisier and more boisterous than usual. Jillian had Anthena over, and Mother Skunk had run into the beavers at the raspberry patch and invited them as well. In all the merriment, Albert and Timothy both forgot all about the rumor of the stranger in the forest. For the next few days, Albert and Timothy met Jimmy at the sandbank and played hit the stick. Timothy was getting better at the game and actually hit the sticker ball with regularity. Having three to play was ever so much more fun. They set up bases to run around and kept score of who was winning. One late morning, Timothy hit the ball just a bit short and tried to slide into base. Ouch! He clutched at his knee. Albert ran over to see Timothy in tears. What happened? Albert exclaimed with worry. Timothy lifted his hands from his knee to reveal a patch of red. Oh dear, you scraped your knee. Albert looked closely at the injury. It's not too bad. Let's get you in the water and rinse it off. So Jimmy got under Timothy's left shoulder and Albert the right, and they helped him hobble into the water. The cool running water washed away the sand and made him feel much better. Jimmy, help me get Timothy home. Albert took charge. The three hit the stick players hobbled back to the cave, chattering all the way. Did you see that slide? Timothy boasted. I almost made it. Mother Skunk mashed some oregano leaves into paste mixed with honey, smeared it on Timothy's knee, and wrapped it with a clean white strip of cloth. She fed him brown bread and broth and sent him straight away to bed. As the day slipped away, Timothy began to feel every heartbeat in his knee. He couldn't hold back the tears and called out for Mother Skunk. Does it hurt so much, dear? She bent over Timothy and felt his forehead. You are a bit warm, she announced. Not hot, but a bit warm. She paced back and forth and thought. Albert, go and pick a bunch of feverfew. Get leaves and flowers, and also get 3 big stalks of wild lettuce. You see in the dark better than the rest of us. Don't dawdle now and hurry back. She patted Albert on the head. Albert opened the front door of the cave and stepped into the moonlight. It was a half moon. Not as bright as I'd like, he thought, but it'll do. The wild lettuce was growing pretty much anywhere there was a shaft of moonlight through the trees. It wasn't picky. But the feverfew was some distance. If he didn't love his little brother, he might not have braved the trek so far from the cave in the dark. Love gives the heart wings, he thought. It had been a long, long while since Albert had been out at night. Mother Skunk didn't like it. He had almost forgotten how magical the forest could be at night. In the silver glow of moonlight, everything was gentler. The dripping of the water that tinkled into the streamlet seemed like enchanted bells. He smelled the heavy sweetness of honeysuckle flowers and was tempted to stop and eat a few. Don't dawdle, he heard Mother Skunk's voice in his head. Oh well, he continued. Above him, he could hear the distant call and response of the owls. Woohoo! Woohoo! And wait for it. Woohoo! Woohoo! He heard the scratch and scurry of tiny mouse feet. I wonder what it's like to be a mouse, he thought. What do they do anyway? He had to skirt around the edge of the Great Glen clearing, and just past was where the feverfew grew. Almost there, he comforted himself, when suddenly he felt strange eyes watching him. He froze. This cannot be good, he thought. Anyone there? His voice seemed detached from himself. He waited, frozen. Hello? He tried again. Then a tiny voice said, You look kind of like me. Show yourself. Albert said in the bravest voice he was capable of. A small brown cat-like creature with a light brown underbelly timidly stepped into the moonlight. Then, as it came forward a bit more, he saw it. A tail as long as its body, but with black and white stripes.
Hi. What are you?
It asked. Fine question, Albert returned. What are you? The cat-like creature sat and wrapped its amazing tail around its side.
I'm a ringtail cat, it said, but most call me a miner's cat.
Albert didn't know what to say.
So what are you?
It asked again. I'm a raccoon, Albert replied, still in shock.
Do you live here?
The creature asked. Yes, this is my forest, Albert said proudly. The creature sat silent for a bit, then replied,
We're just passing through.
It took Albert a bit to process what the miner's cat had said. Who is we? Albert asked.
Me and my pet human,
the miner's cat said dismissively. Of course. Now Albert was frightened. The only thing he had heard of a human was the steel traps that took skunks away never to return. Albert began to growl. Steady there. The creature backed up a few paces. Does the human have traps? Albert growled. The hair on the back of his neck stood straight up. No. He collects tiny rocks that sparkle from the river. Just rocks. I don't know why he gets so excited when he finds them. This seemed harmless enough, and Albert relaxed. Rocks, you say? Albert studied the miner's cat carefully. So, where is your human? Albert asked. He figured if he knew where it was, he could avoid it, just in case.
He's sleeping in a bag in the clearing.
The miner's cat pointed toward the center of the great glen.
He always sleeps at night.
I like being up at night, the miner's cat continued. It's when the magic is about. I was thinking that, Albert brightened. I used to be up at night, but now I have to be up a day, Albert said. Why? The miner's cat's huge round eyes had white fur rings around them that seemed to catch the moonlight. It made an eerie but strangely beautiful, expressive face. Oh, it's a long story. Albert suddenly remembered his mission. I have to go, he said abruptly.
Maybe I'll see you again before we move on,
the miner's cat called after Albert. Maybe, he called back. Albert collected the feverfew plants, added them to the wild lettuce he had picked, and trotted home at a good fast pace. He wanted to make up for lost time. When he came into the kitchen, Mother Skunk had a pot of water boiling. What took you so long? She said as she snatched the plants. I met a stranger, Albert began to explain. But Mother Skunk cut him off. No time now! I need to get this wild lettuce cooking. She took the whole bundle and plopped it into the boiling water. Then she trotted off to the great moss bed with the feverfew. She gave Timothy a few leaves and flowers. There you are, dear. Eat this. I'll give you more later. It will bring your fever down. She hovered over Timothy to be sure he ate his medicine. That's my good boy. She patted his head. Then she trotted back to her pot. She cooked the wild lettuce down till she had a dark paste. Satisfied, she scooped out a spoonful and scraped the rest into a jar for later. She helped Timothy sit up in bed. There you are, my sweet. This will make the pain go away. Now you will sleep. Let's chase it with a cup of passion flower tea. Then you will have happy dreams. Timothy smiled at Mother. She always knew just what to do. The wild lettuce paste was bitter and gooey and not at all nice, but chasing it down with the passion flower tea made it all better. It wasn't long before he felt himself relaxing and then drifting off to sleep. Mother Skunk had been sitting up on the edge of the bed the whole while, and now she was nodding off. Albert wanted to tell Mother about the miner's cat, but now didn't seem like the time. Soon he too was dreaming. It was several days before Mother Skunk would let Timothy out of bed. She changed the oregano dressing every morning and was pleased with the healing. "No worries, the fur will grow back soon." She patted Timothy's head. Albert was sent after more feverfew, but always in the morning. And though he looked, there was no trace of the miner's cat or its human. Albert still hadn't told anyone about his meeting. Somehow it just never seemed like the right time. As the days slipped by, the image of those huge round eyes with eerie white circles kept looming up in his mind. Finally, Mother Skunk declared Timothy well. "You may go out and play," she smiled, "but please no more sliding in the base." Albert and Timothy ran off to find Jimmy. "Let's go straight to his oak tree," Albert suggested. "He's probably still asleep in his nest." As they approached the oak, Jimmy's gray fur could be seen curled up in a ball, sound asleep. Timothy picked up an acorn and lobbed it up. It missed the nest, but it hit a branch above, shaking the leaves. Jimmy stirred, but did not wake. Albert laughed in a whisper. "My turn." He threw another acorn, which hit the top edge of the nest and rolled in. The two giggled. "Throw another one," Timothy urged Albert. The next toss hit Jimmy on the back, and he sat up with a sputter. Timothy and Albert were laughing out loud as Jimmy peered over the edge.
Oh yeah? Think it's funny, huh?
Jimmy grinned as he plucked an acorn and hurled it down at the two laughing below. "Come on, let's get a hit-the-stick game going," Albert called up. The three were happy to be back together. They had all missed their morning games while Timothy's knee healed. They were chattering merrily when Albert suddenly stopped and held his hand up to silence them. Just as the sandbank came into view, Albert saw what he was dreading. A human was kneeling on the sand along the river's edge. "It's the miner's cat, Pet Human," he whispered to the others. "What in the world?" Timothy said in a fright. The three hid in the bushes and watched as the bearded human scooped up riverbed sand and pebbles in a metal plate of sorts. "He's looking for shiny rocks," Albert explained.
How do you know?
Jimmy asked. Albert told them about his meeting with the miner's cat in the moonlight.
I can't believe you didn't tell us sooner.
Jimmy flicked his tail in irritation. "I haven't seen you since it happened," Albert said in his defense. "Does Mother Skunk know?" Timothy asked. "No," Albert said, feeling a little guilty. "I just haven't found the chance to tell her, and I thought they had moved on." The three watched transfixed as the human sloshed the pan of water back and forth. Suddenly, a shy voice came from behind them.
We meet again.
Startled, the three whirled around to come face to face with the eerie, round eyes of the miner's cat. Timothy gasped, and Jimmy instinctively ran up the closest tree. But Albert smiled. "Oh, hello there. I thought you'd left the forest."
We did,
said the miner's cat.
but now we're back.
"Will you stay long?" Albert asked.
Don't know. It depends on if he finds more sparkly rocks.
The miner's cat yawned.
I was sleeping, but I heard you talking, he continued.
"Do you have a name?" Timothy asked. Albert wondered why he hadn't asked that himself.
Sam,
said the ring-tailed creature.
My human calls me Sam. I like it. It's short, to the point.
He yawned again.
It's too bright. Makes my eyes hurt,
he said, mostly to himself. Why do you live with a human? Albert asked in disbelief. He could not imagine anyone wanting to do that.
We have a business arrangement,
Sam said with a casual air.
I let him feed me and pet me and provide me with a cozy bed. In return, I keep his cabin free of mice. It's a workable agreement.
Yeah, mice can be a problem, Albert agreed.
I don't see a cabin.
Timothy frowned.
Oh, we're in a tent now, just passing through. But after he takes his shiny rocks to town, we travel back to the cabin.
Sam stretched, rubbed his eyes.
How can you stand this bright light?
He said, and stepped further back into the shadows.
What brings you to the river?
Sam asked.
We like to play hit the stick, Timothy explained. What is that?
Sam was actually not too interested. Just a game we made up. Albert saw he didn't really care.
We are cousins, you know,
Sam said, looking right at Albert.
Ringtails and raccoons are related.
No joke! Albert was pleased. He liked the thought of having an extended family.
You should come to the desert to visit,
Sam continued. What kinds of trees do you have there? Albert asked. Sam became much more interested in the conversation with the opportunity to describe his home.
We don't have any trees,
he said. No trees? Why? Albert was shocked.
No rain,
Sam said very matter-of-factly. Albert doubted he would ever visit a place with no trees and no rain.
We have sand, mountains of it, and cactus that blooms overnight, and lots of yummy bugs and lizards.
Sam said a bit longingly. He was just a touch homesick. You miss home, don't you? Albert recognized the feeling.
I suppose,
Sam said, not wanting to be too obvious. But to Albert, missing home was a real and serious emotion, and he suddenly felt himself feeling sorry for Sam. Do you have any other family besides the human? Albert asked.
No, not anymore.
Sam seemed far off as he remembered past events. They sat in silence for a while, watching the human slosh the riverbed in his plate. Presently, Jimmy Squirrel slowly climbed down from the tree and tiptoed up to join them.
I figured it was safe, he said with a flick of his tail, since you didn't eat Albert or Timothy.
So, you have names too? Sam smiled. It was the first time they had seen him smile.
And who are you?
Sam asked.
Jimmy,
he said, still nervously twitching his tail.
Decaf,
Sam said to Jimmy. None of them knew what that was.
My human always says, time for decaf, when he is nervous.
Sam felt proud of his advice, but none of them had a clue. Just then the human stood up, stretched and rubbed his lower back. He seemed pleased and was dropping tiny, shiny gold rocks into a pouch that hung on his waist. Sam, time to go, he called out.
Nice talking to you,
Sam said to the boys, and bounded into the sunshine, across the sandbank, and leapt into the waiting arms of the bearded human. A huge smile lit up the human's face as he cuddled and kissed, and Sam purred with delight. Let's go home, buddy, the human said as he held Sam in his embrace.
Well, I'll be,
Jimmy said. Albert's mouth dropped open. He was speechless. That night over chamomile tea, Albert finally told the entire story to Mother Skunk. It took quite a long while.
When he got to the part where the human was kissing Sam, Mother Skunk gasped in disbelief. "Did he really love on him like that?" she asked in wide-eyed wonder. "Oh, yes," Albert insisted. "Well, I'll be," she exclaimed. "That's just what Jimmy said," Albert laughed. Mother Skunk went silent and, looking down at her lap, began to smooth her apron. Albert knew this was her "I'm thinking of something important, so wait for it" motion. "You know, Albert, I loved Papa Skunk more than all the stars," she began. Albert nodded and waited. "When the human took him from me, I vowed to hate all humans for all time. I decided they were vile and hateful creatures. It seems I may have judged them all from one." After another long silence, Albert said quietly, "Love gives the heart wings."
Chapter 17. The Miner's Cat. Discussion and questions. Judgment. It is a natural tendency to be fearful of those we do not know. Gossip in the forest shows a mistrust and fearfulness of a stranger. It is only when Albert talks to the newcomer that his fears begin to moderate. We have a tendency to judge others and form negative opinions on little to no actual evidence. Question 1. How did Albert's conversation with a stranger change his opinion and feelings about him? Question 2. Is it better to withhold judgment of others till we actually get to know them? Question 3. What did Albert discover he and the miner's cat have in common? Question 4. How does a shared similar emotion or experience change our feeling toward others? Question 5. How did this new knowledge of the human change Mother Skunk's opinions? Question 6. Was she wise to revise her opinion in light of new facts? Question 7. Is it ever a good idea to generalize and judge an entire group from one experience?
I am the composer and performer for all the music in this video. Both audio recordings and the printed scores are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. I will provide the link below. The painted illustrations are also my creation. Prints are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. This is a novel. The chapters are meant to be heard in the order in which they were written. And while each chapter can stand alone, they do build as new characters are introduced and past events are referred to. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The chapters are numbered, so if you're just joining us, be sure to go back and watch from chapter 1.
In a dream, in a trance, my spirit